who's in the room with you right now? And he says, I'm alone. And we're like, oh, Pastor, get in the double. You got to have somebody next to you because you'll rise right up out of that bed and start witnessing to them to change your room. And I said, I'll be there next week. I'm coming to visit you. I need some advice. And no sooner did those words pop out of my mouth, I need your advice. There's been about 4 major times in my life that I always needed advice, but major times. And there's a new one coming. And I knew I needed to talk to Pastor about it. And I said, listen, hold on, Pastor. I need your advice. And next week, and just, he might not be here. So I love the scriptures. They do comfort us, but every now and then we're human. And the last time was last night. Everybody had left. And his casket was being wheeled out, and as Terry Terrell said, Pastor's always calling people forward, and for him to be going out, it just. So I'm grateful for the scriptures because they do comfort us. We will need those scriptures to remind us that absent the body, he is present with the Lord. Jerry, be comforted. You were his princess. His biggest cheerleader. When the phrase was coined, she has her daddy wrapped around her little finger, it was because of your relationship with your daddy. He's proudly your doctor, and there's never a time that we call when he was sick. And we would say, what did the doctors say? That wasn't nearly as important as, but Jerry said. And he had not only the great physician, but he had his personal physician, and Miss Julie is proud of you. You really were his princess. Jim, you are just like your dad. I mean, you look like your dad. You talk like your dad. We all know your dad loved music. But you were his favorite musician. I remember the time he said to me, a lot of musicians play music, but he said, Jim feels music. And I didn't appreciate it until, I forget the occasion, but you were playing here, and you did. You felt the music. You had people, you're smart as well. You have your dad's intelligence, you have your dad's wit. It is so uncanny, but the greatest gift is you have the sensitivity to people. When I heard what you did last week, attending to another family and their grief, their funeral, and all you did for their funeral arrangements, I thought to myself, that's exactly what your dad would have done. Because he always cared for people. When people would ask him, how's your dad? How's your situation? You'd always say, it's not about me. It's, right now we're attending all of our efforts on this other family. And that's your dad. You are. Your dad. You don't honor him any more than who you are. And far greater now. He sees everything. He's so proud. Lois, there was a historian that wrote something really nice of you, John Hopkins, who said, if ever a pastor had a perfect wife, Lois was him.
Amen.
Isn't that true? Comedian pastor Steve McDonald called you Sophia Loren. Oh. I know. And pastors sometimes you just get a little miffed at that. I mean, nobody called him Charlton Heston. But you were Sophia Loren. You were more than his complimenter. You were his completer. True. Pastor once said of you, she is not selfish of my time, but we live together for the work of Christ. And that's true. KJ said yesterday, you are a legitimate angel. Thank you for pastoring a along with Pastor, all of us. All of us.
Yes.
You truly are. Did you know Pastor was frugal? Pastor was frugal. I mean, there's some things about Pastor that you just sometimes don't know. I mean, you see him live but you don't know how frugal he is until you're about an hour late for a board meeting at Liberty University. I don't know what it was. It's alarm. Oh, that's right. The electricity went off that night. When he woke up, I mean, he was just storming out the door, and he said, "Speed!" And so we're, after an hour, step on the way to Liberty University, and I looked over and I said, "Pastor, we get pulled over and we get a ticket. Who's going to pay for it?" And he looked at me and says, "You are." I mean, we all got stories. I mean, it just is him. Don't you appreciate the fact that sometimes Pastor's a little naive? I mean, he was sheltered, maybe. Maybe that's the best word. I mean, the school was ransacked one night, and graffiti all over the walls. And we were there with the police, and he was just couldn't believe who would have done this to Riverdale Baptist School. And he had a hospital visit. It was Pastor. And so he had to go, but he said, "Find out who did this." So as he was leaving the property, he was about making the turn out on 202, and he saw the name of the culprit. And he called. And he says, Ken, I know who did it. "Who was it, Pastor?" He said, "Thank you." Alzheimer's, no, Alzheimer's. He said, "Jack Daniels did it." He said, "Put his name on the side, Jack Daniels is here." I love that about Pastor. I love it. There's things about him we're just going to laugh about. And so, just great. Hey, listen, he was also so unassuming. I love this about Pastor. When, as a student in seminary, when he found out there was a church in Connersville, Indiana, that needed a pastor, there were 4 students that applied. So they all wrote to the head deacon in charge of the pulpit supply, and they chose Pastor's name above the other 3. And he didn't have a penny to his name. He had just graduated from seminary, and he was driving by way of bus, and he saw the tent out in Connersville, and he said, "This must be it." He called the bus driver, "Pull over." Well, he walked up to the tent. There was nobody there yet. He was hours early. And he just sat there on his tattered suitcase with all of his worldly possessions. And a couple hours passed, and that same deacon walked up and "Are you Herbert Fitzpatrick?" "Yes." And the deacon thought at the time, "We picked the wrong man." How wrong he was to become the largest church in Indiana. Not only to do it once, to do it twice, become the largest church here in Maryland, and then provide pulpit supply for so many, and interim pastor for so many. I mean, from as far north as probably New Hampshire, to as far south as Boca Raton, Florida. Pastor has filled the pulpit of so many places, so unassuming, such a godly man. Praise the Lord. This is Valentine's Day. Isn't it just like Pastor loved people so much to be at his send-off here on Valentine's Day? It's just like him. Didn't he love his roses? Didn't he love flowers? I mean, if there's ever a day that needed roses, they're probably all gone. Pastor's got a few. It was just like him. He just loved beauty. He loved his flowers. He loved his animals. Why are you laughing?